Okay, so picture this. You're out there, sound asleep, right? And suddenly you're chatting with a friend. But, like, not in some crazy dream world. I mean, for real, in real time. That's the kind of wild thing we're talking about today. Two-way dream communication. It sounds like something straight out of a movie, right? But the thing is, it might be closer than we think. So today, we're diving deep into the world of dream tech, figuring out what's real and what's still in the realm of science fiction.
Yeah, for the longest time, sleep was this big mystery, a total black box, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But these days, research is showing us that it's way more dynamic than we ever thought.
I know, right? And it all starts with this idea of lucid dreaming. Basically, you're dreaming while you're in the dream. I bet you've at least heard of it, maybe even experienced it yourself, right?
Yeah.
It's way more common than people realize.
It really is. It's not just something you see in movies. Studies are showing that something like half of us have had at least one lucid dream, and some people even have them pretty regularly. It's wild.
Okay, but now let's talk about what's really blowing my mind, the idea of actually communicating during these dreams. I mean, think about it. If you can be aware during a dream, could you use that to talk to the outside world?
And that, my friend, is the million-dollar question. Early attempts were pretty basic, though. Things like lights, sounds, even these little electric shocks. Can you believe that?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm not sure I'd want to be part of those experiments. That's got to be jarring.
It wasn't exactly subtle, that's for sure. But those were really just about seeing if they could get any kind of response. These days, researchers are getting much more ambitious. We're talking about, like, giving lucid dreamers math problems or yes or no questions. And get this, actually getting answers from inside the dream.
Wait, seriously, hold on. How is that even possible? Are they hooking these people up to, like, a mind-reading machine?
Not quite mind-reading, thank goodness. But they are using EEGs to monitor brain activity, tracking eye movements, even these tiny little facial muscle twitches. And it turns out they can actually decode those as responses from the dreamer in the middle of a lucid dream.
So what you're telling me is they're communicating through twitches and eye rolls? That's insane. But how reliable is it? What are we talking about here?
Well, to be honest, it's still super early days. The success rate for accurate answers was only around 18.6%. So yeah, we're not quite ready to ditch calculators just yet. But the fact that they're getting any kind of meaningful response at all, that's a huge deal. It's a total game changer.
18.6%. Okay, so I got to ask, what kind of questions and answers were they even working with?
Well, they did share a few examples. One dreamer said they heard the math problem through a car radio in their dream. Another one, they described the researcher's voice like a movie narrator, kind of interrupting their dream. So yeah, it seems like the experience could be totally different for everyone, which makes sense, right? Dreams are super subjective.
That's true. Okay, but if they're already doing this in a lab setting, what does the future hold? This feels like we're just scratching the surface of what's possible, you know? What could we unlock if we could really tap into our minds while we sleep?
You're definitely not wrong about that. But those lab studies, as cool as they are, that's not even the half of it. There are already companies out there pushing the boundaries of dream tech in ways that sound straight out of a sci-fi movie.
Oh, really? Okay, now we're talking. Tell me everything.
All right, so there's this company, RM Space, and they're making some pretty big claims. They say they've already made two-way dream communication a reality. And we're not just talking about simple questions and answers here, like full-on conversations back and forth. They've even supposedly created a whole dream language they're calling Remio.
A dream language. Okay, now that is something I need to hear more about. How can you even have a structured language in the middle of a dream?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
They haven't really said exactly how Remio works, but apparently it uses a combination of symbols, emotions, and these archetypes that supposedly make sense across everyone's individual dream experience.
It seriously sounds like something straight out of Inception, like planting ideas and building these super complex dream worlds based on a shared language. Are we talking some kind of crazy dream helmet here? What's the technology behind it all?
So far, they're playing their cards pretty close to the chest on the specifics, which honestly always sets off alarm bells for me. But from what they've said publicly, it seems like they're using a bunch of sensors, maybe electromyography, to track muscle movements, for example, and get this, maybe even earbuds to transmit sounds during sleep.
Wait, hold up. Are you saying they might be piping voices into people's dreams? Okay, that's kind of cool, but also more than a little creepy. But speaking of intriguing and maybe a little creepy, you mentioned something about the founder of this company, Michael Verduga, and some experiments he did on himself. Tell me more about that. What? A microchip. You're kidding, right?
Nope, you heard right. Apparently his goal was to directly stimulate his motor cortex while he was in REM sleep so he can control his dreams. His words.
Hold on. He performed surgery on himself. Look, I get wanting to push the limits of science, but that just sounds insanely dangerous and, to be honest, incredibly reckless.
Let's put it mildly. Reports say he almost bled out during the whole thing. Now, to be clear, Raduga might be some kind of tech genius, but he is absolutely not a neuroscientist and definitely not a surgeon. That kind of self-experimentation is ridiculously risky. No one should be attempting that, ever.
I completely agree. It really makes you think, just because we can do something, does that mean we should? Especially when it comes to something as complex as the human brain. It's a good reminder that ethics need to be a part of this conversation every step of the way. But for a second, even if Raduga's methods were a little out there, his story does make you wonder what the future of dream tech could be, right? What kind of potential is there? And what about the risks?
Well, that's the billion-dollar question, isn't it? What are the possible benefits? And maybe even more importantly, what are the downsides? What could go wrong? So we were talking about REM space and their claims. Pretty wild stuff. They're saying they've actually gotten messages back and forth between dreamers, like not just basic responses, but full-on conversations. They've even got this thing they call Remio, a whole dream language.
A dream language. Wow. Okay, that's a new one. How can you even have a structured language when you're in a dream?
Right. It's a good question. $1 million question, really. To be honest, they haven't really explained how Remio works. But they say it uses these symbols, emotions, and special archetypes, and somehow it all makes sense across different people's dream experiences.
Okay, now this is where it starts to feel a bit Inception, like planting ideas and building these crazy detailed dream worlds with a made-up language. What kind of tech are we talking about here? Is this some next-level dream helmet or something?
Well, they're being super secretive about their methods, which honestly kind of makes me nervous. But they have said it involves a bunch of sensors, maybe electromyography, to track those muscle movements. Oh, and get this. They might even be using earbuds to transmit sounds during sleep.
Wait, slow down. You're saying they're sending voices into people's dreams? Okay, whoa.
Yeah.
That is both fascinating and terrifying at the same time. Speaking of fascinating and terrifying, you mentioned something earlier about the founder of this company, Michael Raduga. Didn't he experiment on himself or something?
Ah, yes. Michael Raduga. Now, there's a character for you. Brilliant, but definitely controversial, to say the least. Word on the street is he actually implanted a microchip, get this, into his own skull.
He what? A microchip? Come on, you're messing with me.
I wish I was. He said he wanted to directly stimulate his motor cortex during REM sleep, so he could control his dreams. Or at least that was the idea.
He performed surgery on himself? Okay, I'm all for pushing boundaries, but that is just wild. And not to mention incredibly dangerous, not to mention reckless.
Reckless is an understatement. Reports said he nearly died from blood loss during the whole thing. And look, Raduga might be a tech whiz, but he's not a neurosurgeon or anything. That kind of DIY brain surgery is just nuts. Nobody should be trying that at home, ever.
Totally agree. It's a good reminder that just because we can do something doesn't always mean we should. Especially when it comes to messing with the human brain. We have to talk about the ethical side of all of this. But, even with Raduga's unorthodox methods, his story does make you think about the future of this whole dream tech thing. Where could it all lead? What's the best case scenario? And what about the risks?
Well, that's the billion-dollar question, isn't it? The potential benefits are huge, but the potential downsides, well, those are pretty massive, too.
I mean, the possibilities are kind of mind-blowing, right? Think about it. You could confront your worst nightmares head-on, learn new stuff while you sleep, even unlock some hidden well of creativity you never knew you had. It's wild.
Totally. But there's a flip side, right? Like we were saying before, just because we can do something, does that mean we should? This whole idea of messing with our dreams, it opens up a whole can of worms, ethically speaking.
No kidding. I mean, would you really want anyone, planting ideas in your head while you're asleep, even if they said it was for your own good? It just feels a little too close to mind control for comfort, don't you think?
It's definitely a slippery slope, no question. And it's not even just about people trying to do bad stuff. What about consent? Can you really consent to something when you're completely out of it, asleep in dreamland?
It's not like you're signing a permission slip before you drift off, right? And what about dreams themselves? They're so personal, so connected to our subconscious. It almost feels wrong to mess with that, you know?
Right. It brings up all these new questions about privacy. What if companies start targeting us with ads in our dreams? Or governments trying to influence us while we sleep? It's like something straight out of a Black Mirror episode.
Oh man, don't even get me started on Black Mirror. Those writers were on another level. But seriously, this isn't some dystopian future anymore. This is real, happening now. We have to start talking about this stuff, like yesterday. We need rules, guidelines, everything before it goes too far.
Absolutely. This isn't about being anti-progress, but we have to be careful, ethically aware every step of the way.
Oh, well said. Okay, so putting my cards on the table here, if dream communication became like a normal, everyday thing, would you want to live in that world?
Man, that is the question, isn't it? I'll be honest, part of me is like a kid in a candy store, all these possibilities, all these mysteries to unravel about the human mind. But then there's this other part of me, the part that likes my dreams just the way they are, that feels a little uneasy about the whole thing. Like maybe there are some doors we just aren't supposed to open.
I feel that. It's like finding a secret room in an old house. Part of you wants to explore, but the other part is like, nope, some things are better left alone.
Exactly. I guess at the end of the day, it's a choice everyone's going to have to make for themselves.
And that's what makes all this so fascinating, right? So here's something for you to sleep on tonight, literally. If you could have a conversation with anyone in your dreams, who would it be? Would you be into it, or would it totally freak you out? It's a question worth losing sleep over, don't you think?
I'll say.
For sure. Well, on that note, until next time, keep dreaming, everybody. But maybe be careful what you dream for.